My name is Steve Whittaker. I specialize in architectural interior and occasionally aerial photography. We can talk about that later. Uh, what else can I say? I now live in Oregon. I used to be
Mm,
a San Francisco Bay Area person. I grew up, I'm three generations San Francisco Bay Area. We moved up here to be closer to family. I've got three.
mm.
Anyhow, it's been a wonderful experience. Moving is a moving experience without any question. But
That's
it's downsizing. What do you downsize? What do you eliminate? And then the process of actually moving up here and then restarting your business when you move up. When I
mhm,
first arrived up in Oregon, I noticed people, especially in the architectural photographic market, were charging real estate prices. I mean, a lot of them were wondering why they were out of business within a very short time. They tried transferring their real estate pricing into the architectural photography or commercial realm, and it affects everybody. And that's one reason why I jumped back on the bandwagon and started uh, presenting my seminars again. I was just really outraged by seeing what people were undercharging, and it
mm,
affects everybody in the process. And in the process, on top of that, they're damaging the market by doing.
mhm,
So that's part of it.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's one of the things that Craddock has long talked about. If people don't know how to charge, they're often not charging enough. So therefore, they're ultimately damaging the entire marketplace by devaluing.
And they're out of business before they realize it. On top of that, they've paid for that equipment or they're leasing it, and all of a sudden they're stuck with a lot of bills. I think you're asking what your aha moment is, and uh, I started out. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I grew up. So I started out at the community college level, just kind of grazing. I took photographic courses and I fell in love with it. And I figured you can't make a living doing that. So I got injured in a judo accident, so I had time off, and a friend of my mom's, started presenting me with all these brochures to Art Center, all these expensive art schools, Brooks, and
Mhm,
I looked at the price tag, and I just said, "You got to be kidding!" I guess I'm a cheapskate at heart. What else can I say?
mhm,
But turns out he was director of public relations for Shell Oil. I had no clue. They went to high school together, and he became kind of a mentor. One of
mhm.
my first mentors.
Nice.
He put me in touch with an art director who was with a major firm in San Francisco, and that was a big help. He introduced me to a new realm, and advertising just looked like a sparkling, amazing, incredible industry until I got into it. Crash. Um, when I ended up going to San Jose State, that became my major after I got my AA at the community college level, and it was a wonderful transition getting into it. But the more I started seeing advertising, I started having question marks. I worked as a production artist from 1975 after I graduated and did freelance photography. But I think one of the changing moments for me, I did my very first commercial for a company that made hydraulic rams. And what do you charge? I don't know. How does 500 sound? It turned into a 16-hour day. I didn't know about rights. I didn't know a thing. Now, a friend of mine who had a studio for about 3 or 4 years, we went to school together, took photographic classes. And at the time, this is 1977, I guess. He was, uh, I think, president of PP of A at that time as well. And just an amazing guy. And we had a very frank conversation to the point where he asked me what I charged in that job. I got the biggest horse laugh of my life. And it was a wake up call for me. I wish more people would do that to each other. This is a community, and we need to work together and share. And I'll get into that a little bit later on when we get into pricing and
Mhm.
dealing with overreaching terms. It was one of the biggest wake up calls I had, and I realized Um, it was a moment that I needed to take a second look. So I started shopping around, asking other people what they were charging. And PhotoQuote obviously wasn't around back then. At least I wasn't aware of it. Uh, and I bumped it up to 1500 for a job that was back then. Day rates was a term, and it still is. Unfortunately, it doesn't really describe what we do. We'll talk about pricing again. It's a bad habit of mine. I keep jumping into it, and I apologize. But Uh, I mentioned it to the art director, and he broke out laughing. I was wondering how long it would take you before you woke up. And we started working together, and we had a wonderful working relationship for quite a while. I ended up getting projects out on the Big Island, Hawaii. Moving
Nice.
anvil cases was a huge experience for me, especially when you didn't have an assistant. I was working without an assistant. That was a big experience and a wake up
Mm.
call, also, especially shipping 10 anvil cases through uh, uh, not customs, I forget what they call it now, but anyhow, they inspected everything. And trying to get a rental car on your own, where you have all this equipment, is something else. So that was my second wake up call, the value of people assisting. I was lighting up a very large building. It wasn't that large, but lighting became a big part of my career, and I'll talk about that later.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
that was my wake up call. I fell in love with photography in the beginning, and once I started exploring professional trade organizations, not photo clubs, and that's really something that I want your viewers to look at. Professional trade organizations like ASMP, American Society of Media Photographers, and Professional Photographers of America. They've got chapters all over the country. I joined PPFA first in 1973 when I was still in college, because I really wanted to continue exploring photography as a career as well as advertising. And when I graduated, felt like I needed more training, so I went up to the Academy of Art College in San Francisco,
Mhm.
Academy of Art University. And in order to teach her, you had to be a leader in the field. And one of my instructors was a creative director. We're doing storyboard production. He came in one night with a really glum expression. I said, "Dave, what's going on?" He'd been with that account for 18 years. They'd had the airline account for 26 years. One argument between the account executive's wife and the ad manager's wife at a cocktail party killed that relationship. And I started wondering, that was my first point of preparing to do a 180 and bail out of advertising. And I, uh, I decided it's time. So I kept doing little freelance production art jobs. And then I joined a color lab doing outside sales. And I had a chance to really meet with a lot of photographers. Again, at that point, I didn't have a clue. I was still learning. So it was an opportunity to join a local chapter of PPFA. And they have seminars, they have print competitions, which was a wonderful learning experience for me. Uh, and then I joined ASMP in 1983, 10 years later. And 1995, 96, PP of A, Professional Photographers of America, dropped their commercial group. And I bailed. I said, if,
Mhm.
I'm not a portrait wedding. I did 5 weddings. I said, no, thank you. And I ran as fast as I could. I admire anybody that does weddings. My hat's off to them, but I just didn't have the personality for it. Uh,
Absolutely.
So I worked for a couple of color labs for a while. We're still in the introductory stage, just my background,
Mm.
professional labs. And I, uh, the lab manager started a new company and it sounded attractive, so I joined them. About a month and a half later, I had to explain to an art director why they were missing their deadline. He explained to me why he was losing his job and they lost the account. And I gave him my 2 weeks notice to the color lab and I started Claustrophobia Studios until the fire marshal found out. Then I had a real studio in Belmont, California. So that was that. And I was there until the '89 quake. And we had an art
Mm.
director from Dallas, Texas in the studio, and she'd never experienced a quake before. She was having a hard time. It was a wooden structure, so it survived quite easily. But I realized I needed to move closer to home, so I moved my studio to Foster City so I could be within 6 miles of walking distance. And I was there until 2010. And during the recession, 2006 to 2009, I kept wondering, why am I paying rent when I could work out of my home? And
Mhm.
as things progressed to around 2008, I pretty much stopped using the studio except for storage. I wasn't doing product photography anymore. I did a lot of architectural scale models, so I was using it for that. Um, and I'll talk about one specific case where it was another learning experience about security. If you can remind me later, because that one is kind of funny. But uh, 1980 or 2010, I closed my studio. My studio manager was a wonderful guy, and still is, and we're still in touch. I've been so fortunate. The people I've worked with the exception of two people, we're good friends and we stay in touch every so often.
Right.
And it's just I value those relationships.
Absolutely.
The two people, one assistant went around hugging clients. I said, "You're out of here." Another one came up to it was her first time with me. We were photographing the Iwani Hotel in Yosemite, shooting interiors. She handed the interior designer her business card. I'm cheaper than this guy, and I asked her to step outside. I told her to bye, see ya. Uh,
Wow.
yep. So if you're assisting, think about the people you're working with and treat their clients like you'd want to treat your clients. I treat my clients the same way when I go on site. They're their clients, and I treat them with as much respect as I can. Fast forwarding, 2013, we moved to Oregon, just south of Portland, and I love it up here. It's wonderful. It's a great environment. It's a wonderful photographic community. ASMP has a wonderful chapter up here. We just had PDX squared, and we're going to do it again next year. And
Awesome.
PDX squared is an amazing experience. If anybody wants to talk about it, check with ASMP Oregon and go on their website. There's a lot of information there. Again, it's American Society of Media Photographers. And I just want to say again, Craddock Software has been a wonderful supporter of ASMP and with my seminars that I give around the country.
Mhm.
So thank you for that.